Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. I'm here with Chris Nicholson, who looks like he's in some kind of damp, dark dungeon. What's going on with you?
The lighting situation, I find it atmospheric.
Okay. Well, I'm one to talk. I'm
It's
going to
got the
upgrade.
Chipotle industrial vibe, but
Yes.
it's an apartment.
Okay. So we watched Pluribus. We are done with the first season. You were unhappy with you were I don't know, getting skeptical of it. Last time we talked. But you've read some Vince Gilligan interviews and you've seen some episodes, and now you're won over, or you're optimistic, or what?
If anything, my opinions have hardened. I haven't
Mm,
really changed them, and I've made my critique and my diagnosis more specific. But
okay.
it sounds like you liked what you saw.
I think so. I don't know. Yeah, but I'm just kind of under your influence. Tell me what you think. Tell me, so what changed since last time we talked?
Well, one big change of heart that I had was I decided that you just have to read the interviews with Vince Gilligan and the writers and directors to see what they're going for here.
Uh-huh.
And I read a ton of the interviews after the finale aired, and I had a bunch of oh no moments. Like,
Mm.
oh no. Like, he really thinks. Here's the main one, okay?
Okay.
He has said a bunch of stuff indicating he really thinks the heart of the show is this effort to make the viewer question what happiness really is. And
Mm-hmm.
as part of that, he wants to make joining the hive seem like an attractive possibility.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of interviews where somebody says something, and there are various different moments where Gilligan says, "Oh, but the hive, they really do look so happy. Uh, is it a good thing to join the hive? Should
Mm-hmm.
he?
Mm-hmm.
Should she?" He says this a bunch of different ways. Let me give you one example. Others will probably come up.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the episode where I think this is the final episode, where at the beginning of it, you see the Peruvian girl. I think her name's Kusamaya, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they are putting on the whole like dog and pony show, saying join the hive, singing the traditional cultural songs. And then the moment she does join the hive, all the singing stops. They abandon the poor baby goat and it runs bleeding after her to show how cruel this world is and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And when Gilligan is interviewed about this moment, the interviewer raises that and says, like, wow, this is when it really hit me. And then this is when it really hit a lot of people. How terrible, viscerally, the hive is. They abandoned the baby goat.
Mm-hmm.
She abandoned the baby goat that she had cared so much for, moments ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gilligan has this moment, and I can almost imagine him smirking. I must imagine him smirking as he says this, where he was like, but was it really so terrible? Because, yes, they stop the cultural singing and they all walk away and forsake all bonds. But, Gilligan says, did you see that they were all smiling as they
Mm-hmm.
did that?
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I had my oh no moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no. His understanding of happiness is really this shallow, so that he thinks that that was enough to make this a deep question worth building a show around. Like, oh, my friend, did you notice that they were all smiling as they
Uh-huh.
abandoned the little baby goat? Like, yes,
Mm.
I knew they were smiling. Yes, I noticed
Yes.
they were smiling. But my understanding of happiness was never so shallow that I believed mere smiling posed a challenge or a problem.
What is happiness? What is happiness? It doesn't have to be deep, is it? Deep. I mean, I don't know. You have utilitarianism. It's a philosophy with a lot of adherents, which may be the dominant form of philosophy. And that philosophy would say their smiling is enough as long as their smiles are genuine, right? So this is
Yes,
utilitarianism taken to its conclusion.
yes, exactly. I totally agree with you. And maybe
Mm,
this is why I don't find the show that deep, because
mm,
a version of this exact question arises in basically every intro to philosophy or intro to ethics class the moment they cover utilitarianism.
mm,
There's
mm,
always somebody
mm,
in the class, either a student or if no student speaks up, it's the teacher who says,
mm,
"Oh, but what if we just drugged people on heroin 24/7?"
mm,
And then somebody who doesn't quite get the point will say, "Oh, you like that's not physically possible. You'd get to develop a tolerance to it or whatever." And then you force them to the point and you say,
mm,
"What if it were
mm,
physically possible to drug people on heroin and make them get that heroin high
mm,
24/7?" Or a different version of it, you have somebody say, "Hey, what if you're just Mick Jagger? What if everybody is Mick Jagger for their entire life and all of it is sex and drugs and rock and roll?" But
mm,
there's no philosophizing. There's no true love. There are no Romeo and Juliet love stories. Just
mm,
Mick Jagger sex like
mm,
24/7.
mm,
Is that true happiness? This is the first question that always comes up
mm,
anytime somebody learns about utilitarianism.
mm,
And the first move for most people after that first question is to realize, maybe being high on heroin 24/7 isn't true happiness. Maybe
mm.
it isn't
I
the
think
ideal utopia for
I
everybody to be
I
high
think we I think we need
100% of the time.
I think we need a different word than happiness. To me, it is happiness. It's maybe not something else, but it seems to me it is. I mean, I don't know how I define happiness. I don't define happiness as inherent meaning or place in the universe or a sense of freedom or dignity. Those are things, but they are not happiness. To me, that's happiness. I mean, I don't know, like if just the way we were use this word. And the question is, I mean, so I guess the real question that Gilligan wants us to consider is this a desirable state of the world? Um, and if all you care about is happiness, then maybe you say yes. So yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe Gilligan just discovered utilitarianism. Maybe that's it.
I feel like basically there is a bright freshman taking intro to philosophy and learning about utilitarianism the first time. And
Mm,
this bright freshman is thinking, wait a second, if that were true, maybe being high, everybody being high all the time would be
mm,
the utopia. But let me make a show that critiques that. And then this bright freshman just happens to be a master cinematographer, just
mm,
happens to have to juice
mm,
up this thin concept with the best camera work in the world, the best dialogue in the world, and all of that, all of those trappings to make this sound like a deeper premise than it truly is conceptually.
um,
Like, no, it is not, whether you want to call it happiness or whether you want to call it a desirable state of affairs in the eyes of humans,
mm,
it is plainly not that
mm.
to be
Okay,
part of the hive.
let's.
And the show hasn't done enough
Yeah,
work. It hasn't. This is part two of my critique. So part
yeah.
one of the critique is that it's a simple question, a simpler question than the show seems to believe. And part two of the critique is that the show, maybe because it thinks it's such a deep question already, the show isn't doing enough work on its own
Mm,
terms to make the hive seem appealing. The extent of the work the show is doing to motivate its central question is, oh, but did you see that they were all smiling
mm,
as they abandoned the baby goat?
mm,
Like, did you see that Zosha assured Carol that she was happy and that she was happier than she had been? Like, that is telling, not showing.
mm. Uh-huh.
When to motivate its central argument that the hive has a good, desirable existence, the hive uses the technique of telling by having Zosha say, I feel extremely happy. Like, John Cena, do you feel extremely happy? Yes, I feel extremely happy.
What else would
Zosha,
they
do you
do?
feel extremely happy? Yes.
What else would they do to
There's
show?
nothing to
They say
display, nothing to convince the viewer that it is a truly a desirable state of affairs other than the testimony of the hive members and their smiling faces. There's nothing about their inner lives to demonstrate to us that it could potentially be a compelling way of life.
how would they, but the point is they have no inner lives. Really? I mean that seems like kind of the point. Okay, I want to hear before we just continue on this path. Tell me okay, is there other things that stood out to you from these interviews?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. Uh, well, one of them links to this question that you were just saying, like, do we know they have inner lives?
Mm,
There was one of the interviews I read where the interviewer is asking Gilligan if the hive is, if it knows it's being manipulative
Mm,
when it does various things, like when it cuts her off for 40 days, when it takes her to the diner that it's set up to resemble the one of her youth and all that. The question was, does it know it's being manipulative? Oh, I think the question actually was, does it think that it's being deceptive when it uses her eggs without her knowledge? And is that consistent with the way it's treating her well at the same time? And what Gilligan said in response to this was kind of interesting. What he said was, we individual humans contain multitudes, and he thinks that the hive, in a sense, contains multitudes too, in that just as an individual can be motivated by have have motivations that are in tension, he was saying that the hive mind can also have motivations that are in tension with each other.
mm.
So the hive can contain multitudes. And so that
Okay.
does seem to suggest an inner life.
An inner life of the hive, where they all know. Yeah. Okay. Let's get through. Give me all your points. I don't want to lose any of them. So let's do them all, and then we can go back and circle about
So
overall
the
what
hive
we're
has
thinking.
an inner life.
Uh huh.
Okay. And so let me just, all of these are connected. I'm just
Okay.
expanding on the
Yes. Yes.
same thing.
Give me the whole
And
speech. Yeah.
and another point that jumped out on this thread was, I think it was related to the eggs again, and related to this question you and I discussed last time. Like, where's the line? Like, they can't inject her with a needle against her will to withdraw
Yes.
stem cells from her hip, but they can use her eggs and develop those into stem cells against her will. She can say, she doesn't even try to say, no, don't use my eggs, because
Mm,
she knows that they would say overruled.
mm.
And so the show, it draws some deep, the hive mind draws some deep distinction between injecting her physically against her will and
It's
using her eggs against her will.
no. The thing is, I think the premise, and I read two of these interviews. The premise is that to make you into a pod person, uh they don't need your consent. But I guess to violate your bodily integrity, I guess they do, which makes sense, right, on its own terms.
On its own terms. Well, so it doesn't violate her bodily integrity to, I mean, the eggs are like her eggs, right? They just
Well,
happen to not be
they're
located within
property.
her body, but
Yeah, but
they are literally, you know,
they are
part of her.
hers. If someone takes your eggs, have they taken your body? No, I don't. I wouldn't say we would say that. If someone touches your eggs, or they visit violating your bodily
I
autonomy,
mean,
they might be guilty
eggs
of
are
eggs.
eggs are a woman's property
I
in a different
understand.
sense in which her purse is her property. Like
Uh,
the eggs are not just an item that's property. Eggs are part of her body as
I don't know
property.
if I spit on the floor, that's part of my body, right? I don't think it's part of my body. It's why if I leave my saliva somewhere in American law, you can't force someone to give a cheek swab. You can go through their garbage, assuming you just get it to the dump, and you could take some wrapper of some food that they ate, and you could get the DNA that way.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to like how closely the part of the body is tied to your autonomy. And the spit, like if spit
The
could be
Amer
used in the same
it's
way that
just the
eggs are, then I think
it's
it
just
would be more closely tied to like a bodily right, not just an ordinary property right.
it's it's a bodily right. This is basic Fourth Amendment. So this is the eggs are they're her property. They're part of her body. Um, did she? Oh, by the way, here's another thing. She never explicitly did she ever explicitly say don't use my eggs to do this? Like maybe
It's a good question, and I was kind of waiting for her to try that so they would shut her down. And
yeah,
so
but
I
it's
don't think they actually have her attempt to say, you can't use my eggs in the show.
yeah yeah
But I
yeah.
think we are given to believe that she didn't say that simply because everybody knows it wouldn't work.
Mm. Or she never thought of. I mean, who knows? It's
No, I mean, like that would be very cheap. This show is not bad in that way.
uh,
Like the answer cannot be that Carol simply had a senior moment where she forgot to try saying, "Don't use my
Yeah.
eggs.
So they
You don't
are
have my."
no. I mean they are they are very loyal. You're right. They are lawyerly. And for some reason, yeah, they cannot. No, I mean it's not that difficult. It's like you could come up with a legal principle, and the eggs would be an edge case. Um, but that's fine. There are edge cases in the law, and it's not
But
completely
let me
ridiculous
finish
to
the
me
point.
that
The
there would
point I
be.
was
Okay.
driving at here in the interview. So the interviewer was getting at these questions like, is the hive's moral system internally consistent? And it was on this question of the eggs, and specifically whether using the eggs was permitted
Mm,
and consistent with the rest of the stuff the hive does. And on this exact point, Gilligan responded saying, "Yeah, we guys in the writers' room, all of us, we debated this question
mm,
and for hours. We spent
mm,
several hours debating
mm,
whether it was morally consistent from the hive's own point of view to treat
mm,
the eggs differently."
mm,
And he said he has this line saying, "It's a real rabbit hole if you go
mm.
into that stuff." And you and I just like dipped a couple toes into that
Yeah.
rabbit hole here. And I was kind of two minds about that statement. I had one reaction that was like relief, like good. I am glad that the writers' room spent several hours debating whether it is consistent from the hive's own system
Mm,
to use the eggs without her permission. I'm glad that there is, this is like a proof of life. This is
mm,
proof of philosophical life,
mm,
uh, that there is some discussion and some attempt to make it consistent. So overall, I'm glad that he said that.
mm,
On the other hand, I do find it frustrating because I got the sense that what they are debating, they seem to be taking some facts about the hive's ethics as brute facts, like as primitives. Like
mm,
they must truly love Carol.
mm,
Like one of the facts they seem to take as a brute primitive fact
mm,
is that the hive cannot outright lie. I've
mm.
seen many interviews from Gilligan where he says that is
Yeah.
just a given.
Right, and
And
that's
this
in
is
the
one
show.
reason, by the
Yeah.
way, why we have to read these interviews. This is a show where we can't really attempt to understand it unless we read the word of God pronouncing that the hive really cannot lie. And
We
so we know
understood.
that.
We did it, but no, but we got that. The lie thing, at least, is to me one of the things that is clear from the show. There's a entire plot line of Carol try investigating this and trying to figure it out and finding out.
Yeah,
Which
she's
she,
trying, but like, do
it
you
could be.
like my book?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is
it could be. It could not be the case, but everything is consistent with them not lying. I mean, it seems
yeah,
that
yeah,
like I would get that from just the show without ever reading an interview.
true. But what I'm
Okay.
driving at here is that it seems like they are just stipulating some foundational facts about the hive works, like
Mm,
it cannot lie. And there is never, I have decided that there is never going to be an
mm,
exploration of why this kind of entity cannot lie.
mm,
There's just the assertion, the act of, writerly willpower that
mm,
they cannot lie. And then they do put some actual thought into developing a system around that. Like, okay, they cannot lie. This kind of fits with this other basic premise that they cannot physically harm. And then, given those own building blocks, they try to do some actual development to create a consistent system. Like, okay,
mm,
given these fundamental Lego moral blocks, uh, does it follow that the hive is allowed to use her eggs without her permission?
mm,
And they debate that stuff.
mm, mm,
But I'm more confident than ever that there's going to be no explanation
mm,
whatsoever of where
mm.
the building blocks come from or why those are the building blocks. And
Yeah.
I think that's lame. I think it's
Mm,
cheap.
yeah.
And I think that there's an explanation for it that comes from the original genesis of the show. Gilligan is on record saying that his first idea of the show wasn't sci-fi. That there was going to be a male protagonist, and the premise was that everyone gives him whatever he wants.
Mm,
And then he adapted that to be what Pluribus is now.
mm,
And so I think that he took that original DNA. It's just the premise. Everybody gives him everything he wants. And that became imported into creating the moral building blocks of the hive. But there is no deeper truth. Last
Mm.
time we were talking, like, are
Yeah.
they saying this is what happens when you average humanity? They're not saying that. It's just an assertion that this is how the show is.
Mm. That's interesting. I mean, a lot of these interviews are directed by the thoughts of the interviewer, and I don't see any interviewer of the ones I've seen say approach it the way you are. There's not nobody kind of at that less sophisticated of a level who's saying why are they like this. They are interested in these lawyerly questions. They're happy to take the that there are these axioms and then asking Gilligan about asking him about that, and so they're responding to the questions in the interviews. It's not him setting the tone of like what they can talk about, right? So maybe they're just asking the wrong questions. Maybe it's somewhere underneath there.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a sin for the show to be treating things this way. I mean, you take a show, you engage with it, on its own premises. Where this method becomes a problem for me is in that the show's central concept is that we're supposed to wonder whether it's better to be the hive
Mm,
or to be Carol,
mm,
or whether it's better for Carol to be Carol or the
mm,
hive. That's the meat of the show. And the show keeps denying us all the things we want because it wants
mm,
to focus us on that question. And I don't think it's doing enough to
mm,
tell us what it is to be the hive. And to really answer that question, is it really better to be the hive than Carol? I need it to go into stuff like
mm,
what the hive's inner life is like and where the hive's inner life comes from. It's just
mm,
not doing nearly enough work on its own terms to make its own question compelling.
mm. Yeah. So they are. Yeah. Okay. It's like, yeah. I mean, is the idea that whether it's good to join the hive? I mean, you seem to be taking this as the center of the show, right? So last time you were also saying it was a character study of Carol, which is related. Another thing that I thought was interesting from the interviews was they ruled out COVID, and he categorically ruled out COVID and AI as being what's behind this, right? Because he says that he was thinking of this well before COVID, well before AI became a thing. And so, okay, like that's interesting, and especially AI. I think we talked about AI just like kind of being this thing that just follows rules, and so like if he was thinking about AI, that could have actually been a hint that they were going to get into these deeper questions because there could have been some theory where some planet developed some artificial intelligence combined it with DNA. It had some arbitrary stupid rules that were set by the programmer, like the Eliza Yudkowsky person of the aliens convinced them to not to make sure it doesn't lie, but then forgets like some other thing, and then just like the AI science fiction scenario, it somehow becomes it ends in catastrophe. But the fact that it's not AI is a sign of what you're saying, that we're not going to get that depth. Um, yeah, okay. This is you've changed my experience of watching the show, because yeah, this is not what I would have focused on. I would have focused on it. I would have thought this. The the idea so there's a couple of ways to approach this. I was actually thinking about approaching this from a different perspective. Right. Okay, so you were imagining there's some like grand rule. I was also interested in like why they're like this, but you were imagining there might be some grand rule where it's like if you combine all the humans together, they get XYZ happens. I was thinking it more in terms of, is there evolutionary theory that would explain, because that's a big question too, how this thing evolved. And evolution does all kinds of weird things, and things go in the direction you wouldn't expect at first, but there has to be an equilibrium at each stage of the process. It has to be like you're able to see, you have your the social human social life has to evolve at every step from similar building blocks, something as complex as government or something like that. It has to evolve through evolution, or the economy or whatever. Um, and this, and I guess I wanted that. That seems like it would be so hard to, like, assuming it exists in this universe, would be so hard to explain in a show that maybe it's too much to expect that. Um, and maybe the AI would have been a shortcut around this. That it's just an AI that's misaligned. Um, but yeah, I would be happy. I would be very happy and very interested if they did think about evolutionary theory a bit. But we may not
Can
get
you
that either.
expand on that? Like, in what way? You mean the evolution of the virus itself?
Yes, like exactly what it does at each point. So you're like, okay, one way I look at it is just like it's RNA, it's genetic programming, its blueprint is to say combine, merge. That doesn't really make sense because it has to spread its genes, and there's no guarantee any particular species combining them is going to turn out in a way where they spread this thing. Maybe there's no guarantee of it. Maybe there's some kind. So there has to be some kind of core uh, blueprint plan as to what this thing is doing to the organisms that it's seizing control of. And so that, okay, if that's true, then it doesn't, like, humanity is not the point. The point is this virus, and maybe anything with sufficient, and maybe this would explain why it doesn't hit animals, it hits humans. Anything with sufficient intelligence, it's just able to hijack. Maybe that's anything with social life and intelligence, it's able to hijack.
Hmm.
Um, but
Hmm.
but then an interesting question is like why like retarded humans, like what are retarded humans, like where are they in this world, like
Right.
what are people with
It doesn't
Alzheimer's?
infect. It doesn't infect the smartest bears, but it does infect the dumbest humans.
Yes, yes, and so there needs excellent, but maybe it doesn't. We haven't seen it infect the dumbest humans. We have not seen retarded people or babies, like infants, how they behave, or people with advanced dementia. Do they have access to all the world? Are there like intelligence differences between these? Everyone has the same knowledge. But, I guess everyone can do everything. People can fly planes and people can do surgery. So like IQ differences might not be a thing in this after the joining. Um, but there's another way to approach this that is not from your perspective. Your perspective is almost less hard science fiction because it's like it's just combining humans, and then we kind of wonder from a philosophical perspective what happens when you combine humans. My perspective is like this virus is a thing that has evolved and it's doing its own thing, and the human is just the is just the vehicle for it to do what it's going to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are interested in, like, if it were a harder sci-fi show, what
Mm,
would be the explanation for the virus? And I think it's an interesting question, and it would be an interesting direction to go in if the show said, hey, you know, in the line I had about the bears and the humans, this is because it's a funny line that I heard when I was in Yellowstone. Whenever
mm,
you're in an area where they have
mm,
these bear-proof garbage cans,
mm.
uh, the rangers always laugh and they tell you, well, it turns out that there is considerable overlap between the
Oh.
smartest bears and the dumbest humans. That's why
Yeah.
they're explaining either why they can't make the bear-proof garbage cans more difficult or less difficult. The
Oh.
humans are like, why is this so difficult?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that it would be a perfectly legitimate question here and a good one to go into for some version of the show where they said, hey, it turns out there's a reason why it only infects the humans. There's a scientific reason why it doesn't go for anything other than the humans, or there's a practical reason why it's only designed to go for the humans. But this gets back to one of my critiques, which is that I have given up on the show being interested
Mm.
in questions like that. I have given up on the show thinking that it owes the viewer an answer to the question. Like, I think the show is just asserting it as yet another brute fact that this virus, it only applies to humans.
Yeah.
And the answer as to why it doesn't apply to any other animals, why not baboons, why not gorillas? Because that's not part of the show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and this gets to one of the things I saw in the interviews where Vince Gilligan has something saying he doesn't want to give viewers the answers in his interviews. He wants them to be having questions. He wants
Mm,
them to be asking questions and having
mm,
discussions like this.
mm,
Gilligan wants you and I to be having an extended theoretical discussion of why the virus only infects humans. But I can't have that discussion because I've arrived at the answer
mm.
that the answer is the show decided it only infects humans. And so I'm not willing to engage in a deeper discussion because I think there is no truth beyond that. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because because that scene when we had the wolves already. We saw the wolves try to eat. So we saw animals beforehand. But then there was a scene in one of the last episodes where Zoja is sitting there and they're in the convention center or whatever. And then Carol is like, "Is he one of you, the dog?" Which I think she should know already because she had the experience with the wolves. Like she's seen animals, so like why is she still unsure about that? So she asks, "Is the dog one of you?" And then Zoja's like, "No, but he is a good boy." And so yeah, and Carol, I mean, the dog that doesn't bark, so to speak. Here, Carol doesn't say why or like, "Do you have any explanation?" Carol just takes it, right? It's like this is. Yeah, and Zosha doesn't attempt to provide a explanation. Carol's not interested in one, so that's a bad sign. That is a bad sign that they are not going to go very deeply
Yeah,
into
so
this.
I think that Gilligan truly wants and expects people like you and I to be diving deep into the question of why the virus only applies to humans. And he would love it for us to throw out scientific theories and all this other stuff. But the show just hasn't given me enough to make me believe that those questions would be rewarded.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sense where like maybe like okay, like we shouldn't have all the answers at the end. I think that that would be kind of a weird show if there's just like some book, some kind of Quran or something that like explains it and like a person reads it to us at the end. Like I think that would be kind of lame. It is a show about intergalactic travel of messages and RNA. And so like whatever, like we as human beings don't have all the insights into everything that happened in our past. Although we get a general idea, we have like theory of evolution, and we do have a general idea of where we came from. Um, yeah, and so that would be maybe that's too much, but I think you're right that there should be breadcrumbs. There should be things that we think, and like she should be able, like Zoja should say something about the dog that indicates there is a scientific reasoning here, right? Like stuff like that. I think we have a right to expect.
They want there to be lore, kind of. They want to avoid giving answers because they want fans like you and me to dive deep into having those discussions and debates about why it is that the dog can't be one of the others, one of the
Mm,
hive. They want us to talk about stuff like that. But to do that, there do have to be some breadcrumbs, even if the breadcrumbs are never answered by the show. There has to be enough to give fans like us hope that there is a deeper truth that is worthy of debate and discussion. But everything that I see in this show just tells me there's too many brute facts. There's
mm,
too many primitives where the answer is it's like that, the
mm.
others are like that, the hives like that, because that's how the writers want them to be. They've
Yeah.
played that card too many times. And now I don't have the faith to engage in world building that they're not doing themselves.
Do you think they'll even tell us like the thing that I thought they would have to tell us at some point, at least, was why it's like seems lazy. I mean, you could just make up a bunch of arbitrary rules and then you could always think up a story afterwards. And yeah, and the thing that I thought we would at least get an answer to is the idea that there is a reason why these 13 people were immune to it. Like I thought they had to explore that. There has to be an explanation because it's the big question mark. Like even the brute facts of the universe, there's something. And is it just going to be like, well, they had a genetic mutation, whatever. That if that this mutation that makes this one thing that like has never been nobody has evolved any defenses against because it comes from a different galaxy. and these 13 people in random countries just do not get infected with it. That's that's really bad if that's the direction we're going in.
So what do you think? Like, do you think that there is going to be this deeper explanation offered, or at this point, do you think the answer is just they've got some genetic thing and they're doing a thing with stem cells to change the genetic thingy?
Yeah, I mean, the RNA thing was interesting. We talked about this a little bit because the RNA they were thinking about it because there was some reason it was like RNA was before DNA or something. There was something about RNA that was actually interesting. They got the equations right. I mean, like you see that interview where like there's all these equations and they get them right. The Mauritanian guy, Kumbe, I thought that was clever to use Mauritania. Um, yeah, the lawyering in Better Call Saul, if you recall, was really good. I mean, it was very interesting. They would have these like discussions that like you had to go to law school to kind of fully grasp, and so like there is like there are reasons to trust Vince Gilligan, even in the context of the show, where there's been like some things that they really went above and beyond, and the question is, do they go above and beyond to at least give us that explanation? And no, you're right. I don't see. It is just a premise. There's something. They were immune. Something. Stem cells, even Carol, like again, the dog that doesn't bark. Carol is not like, why me? Like, wouldn't you ask that? Wouldn't that be a natural thing? Is it some
Like she's gonna
psychological
ask that,
trait?
and they're gonna be like, "Well, this is how it's written. Take it or
Yeah.
leave it."
Yeah. I mean, she would wonder, is it some psychological thing? Was I standing in the wrong place? Like, well, like, is it something, like, you would be curious about yourself when it says, like, you won this lottery, you and 12 other people of the planet. And she's not curious about it. That's a bad sign.
Yeah, and the show does do some work to have Carol suddenly be curious. And I think the main one where this comes up is the massage scene, right? And
Mm,
and so that is as deep as the show has gone so far into exploring the hive's inner life. Uh, for most of the season, Carol has been too hostile to even ask them questions. And then we get the massage scene and that whole episode, charm offensive. And and so there is some stuff, you know, I want to be clear that it's not like I think the show is doing zero. It's not
mm,
like I think the show is going to do zero to go into these questions. It it by definition has to do more than it has so far, and it makes some first steps with stuff like that massage scene, and them talking about how it's like they're all on the same wavelength or something, or they're tuned into the same frequency. And there's Zosha has a couple lines where she's like, "Oh, we all communicate through, I don't know, electromagnetism or something. I don't really know how it works, Carol." You remember those?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, did she say I don't remember how it works, Carol? Because she would know these things, right?
Well, there is that, and I think they call it lamp shading. Where the writers don't know how it works, and therefore the character says, "Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know how it works." But there is an actual line, and I think it happens when they are out on the bluff looking at the train
Yeah.
approaching,
Mm,
and Carol is asking Zosha some more questions about how their communication works. And I think the exact moment is Carol is expressing some like desire to hear the train honk or something, or sound its horn, and then it does that, and then she looks at Zosha and is like, how do you do that? How do you do that communication where I say something and then the train conductor hive mind hears it and responds? And that's when Zosha says something like, I don't know, magnets, electricity. Well, I don't really
mm.
understand it, Carol.
Yeah. 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 And going deeper in the massage scene, it's not what you're talking about because this is still, again, how does it work? Like, we're still at the level of mechanics. We're not at the level of, like, why can you not lie? She doesn't.
I would settle for anything, man. I'll take
Yes.
what I can get
Yes,
from this show.
yeah, yeah, no, no, but it reinforces your point. It's shallow. It's not going deep. It's not giving you a why. Yeah, there's so much.
And this whole
Hmm.
frequency thing, by the way, I would be remiss not to tie this into whatever weird stuff Manusos is doing with the radio, right?
Mm,
And like this stuff is really important as far as what the
Yes.
show is actually going to give us, as
Mhm.
far as deeper explanations of the hive and the science behind it, especially. Uh,
Yeah.
like these things are clearly connected. When Zosha, multiple times, I think she said, "Oh, how do we communicate with each other? I don't know, electromagnetism,
Mm.
radio. It's kind of like a radio." I think she
Mhm.
says that, like it's kind of like we're tuned into the same
Mhm.
radio or
So
something. And then we see
Medusa's
Menuso's
yeah.
experimenting with
Yeah.
frequencies on
Yeah.
the radio, and we don't fully understand it, but it's clearly very important. And these things are obviously connected, I would think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Menusos that became clear in the final episode where he was trying to fix that guy. And I think what Menusos was doing was he was just fiddling around with the radio on his own. And then um and then he found like some frequency was different, and then he found out that if he played that frequency, so this must be maybe this is the frequency that they're communicating, and that's why it's different from all the other frequencies. Where like the radio, because they don't have radio stations, I guess they just have that one frequency which they're all on. Medusa discovers that he has a hypothesis that it can interfere and fix the people. Right? That's what's going on? That's the Medusa's storyline of how this gets fixed.
Right. Yeah. And the best I can guess so far is that maybe they are literally communicating on some kind of frequency, and maybe
Mm.
he thinks he can jam it. I
Yeah,
don't
seems
really
like something like that.
fully understand, but it seems to
Yeah.
be kind of in that direction.
Right. So they're making an effort here. They're making an effort as far as connecting different things as for the mechanics. It's not.
And let me give them, partial credit somewhere else in the vicinity of this too, the
Mm,
vicinity of this. Uh, Carol is alongside the mechanics, like scientifically, which frequency do you guys communicate on? How does information get sent between you? Alongside that, in the same episode, in the massage scene, she explores the kind of more philosophical angle of it, which is like when you are feeling satisfied from that massage, is every member of the hive feeling like,
mm,
damn, this is a really good massage at the same
mm,
time?
yeah.
When that knot in your shoulders unwinds, is everybody getting, even if the physical knot isn't unwinding for everybody else, are they feeling the same endorphins in their brains that are released from Zosha's knot being unwound?
Mm,
And, to the show's credit, it does ask that question, and Zosha answers it by saying no. You know, when my physical knot is unwound on this massage table, only I experience the massage endorphins. That's the way I would
mm,
translate what the show is saying. And I think
yeah.
that is interesting, and I think that is important. And now we get into a bit of my own theorizing. And here I think the show is doing something right, and so I'm willing
Mm,
to play its game here.
mm,
I started to wonder if this phenomenon is tied to the moment at the very end of that same episode where Zosha and Carol are playing house. And up until now, Carol has instructed Zosha, you must use the pronoun I, and you must pretend to be an individual, basically.
mm,
But there's this very interesting moment at the end where she asks Zosha what her favorite food was. And
mm,
Zosha gets this kind of reminiscing look, and she
mm,
goes deep into her memory to talk about what some like mango ice cream that she would
mm,
get as a kid as she
mm,
watched the ships come in and out of the port, something like
mm,
that. And she gets lost in reverie, and she starts using the word I, but her language, her diction kind of drifts, and it sounds more natural. And the I sounds more natural too.
mm,
And then she's kind of jerked out of it to say, "Oh, somebody's coming. You're going to have a visitor soon." And then the episode
mm,
basically ends. And so what a lot of fans were wondering, and what I was wondering is, was this just a continued part of the act, like just especially convincing acting, or was Carol actually kind of achieving a minor breakthrough to activate Zosha's individuality by triggering this memory? And I think that that may be connected to this stuff about the massage table and about how only Zosha, the individual, gets the massage endorphins. Maybe the fond memories are somewhat like a massage in that they act they activate, individual Zosha endorphins, and not just endorphins, that's shorthand for like the fond memory activates, like the massage, Zosha's individual feelings. And you're not far from individual feelings to individual thoughts.
Yes, and also love, which is the other big one, right? Whether Zoja could feel affection for Carol or other people, presumably, in the way that other people can't. So it seems like, and even isn't there a scene where Carol is like, "Do you love everyone the same, or do you love me more?" It's something like that, and then Zoja says she loves everyone. She won't answer directly that she loves any one person more than anyone else. But anyways, this is also something that is seems like it's unquestionably important, and is going to, as this develops, we're gonna find more about it. So yeah, it is. It has to. It's such a. There's so many things to potentially explore in the show. It seems like, yeah, I'm convinced like you, because it's making a real effort for this for a character study, which we talked about, and then um the personal relationship between Zona and J. Carroll, and then even how this stuff works. But then also, yeah, and you're gonna. And by the way, the other thing is there's like, isn't there like six more, not five more, non-English speakers, who we have to meet and who have to see their characters develop and have to come along. Yeah, then they haven't even been hinted at, really, at any point. And so, yeah, I mean, Manusos is like the number two character of the show, and he's only been, he hasn't had that much screen time. He's just been, doing a few things now and then. And if, one or two episodes have been really dedicated to him. And so, yeah, I think that they're gonna. I mean, look, I think this is looks like it's a hit show. They're probably gonna get the opportunity to go as long as they want, and they could explore all this stuff. Gilligan in the interview says, "I'm thinking maybe 4 seasons." Um, but it's assuming the ratings stay high, and I guess this show is really living off of culturally and intellectually, and even for us, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul nostalgia. We just want we just want there to be a TV show. I'm not watching any other TV shows that are currently on other than this. So I want it to succeed. I want it to be great, because again, otherwise I'm not watching any shows. I'm going to go back and just watch The Sopranos again. And that there's nothing to do. But maybe that's my fault for not making the effort. Maybe they're out there. Um, but yeah, yeah, I think you're right. You're convinced. It's more and more convincing that we're not gonna get these hard science or deep answers in any real way.
And I want to be fair. Like, I think they're doing a bit of that. And, that stuff from that episode, Charm Offensive, I think it's really interesting. Uh, like I'm semi interested in, and I accept the whole radio thing, and I accept that the radio
Yeah,
thing is going to be very plot important.
yeah.
Which, how do they actually physically, scientifically send information back and forth? The show is aware that that is an important question, and
Mm.
the show is going to have an answer and use that as some important plot thing about how to break the hive apart. Like, Manusos is on the right track with his radio frequency stuff. So sure, I accept that. And I am genuinely interested in this stuff they're giving, and they are giving me a good taste of the kind of thing I want when they say, like, I think this massage thing is really going somewhere. And I do believe that it's not even the first time they've raised that point. There's some point earlier on, and you mentioned it. It's like, I don't
The
know, it's like with
alcohol.
the milk or something.
No, they
Uh,
were drinking alcohol, and she asks her, "Does everyone
yeah, the
get
alcohol.
drunk?"
Yeah, exactly. So the show has taken care, at least in a couple major ways, far apart, to say when somebody experiences, when a hive member experiences some stuff, some feelings that are connected to a physical stimulus, those feelings, the qualia of the feeling, the sensation of the feeling is local to that member of the hive. And the rest of the hive is aware of it, but doesn't feel it. The show has taken care to emphasize this a couple times and make the distinction. And so this is philosophically rich. And And what I think it's going to go to is that, like, I think you were exactly right to connect this to the idea of love and say love is basically the preeminent strong feeling that fits this. And so if a local member of the hive feels a kind of physical stimulus for love, they feel that love, I think that by the show's logic, the rest of the hive would be aware of that feeling of love, but they would not have the same sensation of love.
Yeah.
And this is why I want to hammer home the point that there is not a strong distinction between feelings and thoughts. Like,
Mhm.
I hate this person. I hate this thing. Is that a thought or is it a
Mhm.
feeling? I love this
Mhm.
person. I love this thing. Thought or feeling? I don't think that there is a very strong distinction. And so once you grant, right, the show's logic that these local stimuli can produce local feelings, then it's smooth sailing to the idea that local stimuli can produce local thoughts. And then you have individuality.
Mhm.
And I think the show is setting the seeds for that, and those seeds will pay off in an interesting way.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because it's like you're right. This kind of it gets at this mind body dualism thing, um, and so you have the idea that it's like if this was designed by some person or some entity, it would be like, okay, this could have like we're gonna make a distinction between love, which is like an emotional state of the world, and being drunk or getting a massage, which is a response to a physical stimulus. In scientifically, I don't think that's a easy line to draw, to say the least, or even if it if it even exists. And given that's the case, yeah, this is not going to go like and so Zoja must at some point, you would think, develop feelings or develop something, individuality, right? But it's taking a position on this already because it seems to imply there is a difference between being in love and being drunk because at least it works so far. Like maybe you break through it, but at least there is some way where coherently at a physiological level, it does work for these individuals, right? And so, like, is the question how do you like where do you go with this? Do you just say like it's a line that can be breached, or did the line never exist, or um, does do you blur it in some way? I'm not sure.
Wait, can you break that down a bit more for me?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Uh, so so this idea that there are physical stimulus, and then so like Zoja has not Zoja has not presumably fallen in love with Carol. At least I don't know what's happening.
She doesn't
Presumably,
think she has, at least in any special way.
she doesn't think she doesn't think. Okay, maybe she has. Maybe this is self delusion on the part of the hive mind slash Zoja. Maybe it is self delusion. She has enough psychology to be deluded, and because she's not deluded about liking massages or being drunk. Like she understands how this works, but she thinks like that she, for some reason, like she has this self deception. Either she has the self deception when it comes to love, or she's not feeling the love, and it's all just that's all just
Like, here's an analogy. Like,
okay.
take what the show has given us so far. After somebody keeps getting massages and they keep feeling good, a member of the hive, could
Mhm.
that individual member of the hive, by extension, come to like massages in a way that other members of the hive don't? Because other
Yeah.
members of the hive, all they ever have is the knowledge that massages feel good, but they don't have the feeling of massages feeling good. So imagine there's only one member of the hive that ever gets massages, and I think that's actually that is the case. There is
Yes.
only one member of the hive that ever gets massages, and so suppose she keeps getting massages. I think according to the logic of the show, Zosha, the individual member of the hive, might be like, I really like massages. And she has a basis for saying that no other member of the hive can. Uh, this brings me back to my days as a philosopher. They would talk about how there are things you can't get through testimony. Like you can tell, you cannot tell somebody that a movie is good unless you yourself have seen it and found it good. And in the same way, only Zosha can be fond of massages. And I think that Zosha would grow fond of massages, and she would be the only member of the hive to be fond of massages. And I think the same would apply to Carol. If she keeps having sex with Carol, keeps going on dates with her or whatever, I think that it's exactly parallel. And this would explain how either the Zosha part of the hive could come to have a particular affection for Carol, or the hive writ large could come to have a particular affection for Carol. But I'm more confident in saying that it would apply to the Zosha part of the hive.
Yeah, but it's an interesting question why the hive doesn't understand this and doesn't avert this danger by keeping Zoja away from Carol. Like that seems like a danger that they would be smart enough to figure out. Like you have to figure out how smart the hive supposedly is, has all the knowledge of the universe is. It's supposed to be really, really smart. Um, maybe this is why they all starve to death so quickly. Like maybe it's evolved like to like have a short, it's kind of like there's these species which just go reproduce and then die. Maybe that's it. Maybe it knows, it doesn't know, but it's evolutionarily it's programmed to have this short life cycle where like there's all these paradoxes that will emerge if they live more than 5 or 10 years or something. um but that they don't, they're all going to die off. That's the thing, they're all going to eventually die off. And then they're going to spread it to other galaxies, right? Maybe that's the way this kind of thing works. It's a fast life cycle in that, not a fast life, I mean, it's like the thing lives like 10 years on a planet, 5-10 years on a planet, and then it goes somewhere else or whatever, local conditions. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, it's yeah, like I don't know, do you have a thought of that, like why the hive doesn't
That,
avert this
that does
danger?
that does kind of tie into what you were expressing a desire for early on, kind of an
Yes.
evolutionary um, system behind how the virus works. And that's an interesting connection you just made. Like, hey, maybe this dying out in 10 years problem, or at least many of them dying, not all of them, but many of them dying in 10 years, maybe that's not a problem for the way the virus evolves. It just needs to be efficient enough to spread itself again before that. And it reminds me of the way octopuses life cycles work, or at least many octopuses. I think they mate, they have kids, and then they are programmed to self-destruct. They're programmed to go off and die after that. So I believe so that they don't compete with their own kids for resources, so that the
Mm.
young can continue to inherit the earth. And I just was talking to a scientist who suggested to me that human aging might work in a pretty similar way.
Mm.
Why do humans age? Why do our bodies break down through inflammation and all these other causes when we get older? He was suggesting to me that it's just a delayed version of what happens to the octopuses. Evolution favored humans that die out when they're beyond reproductive age. And maybe the virus could be working in a similar way.
And maybe that's why, I mean, thinking
Although
about.
there is a problem here when it comes to the
Mm.
evolutionary explanation, which would be there's a clear cause for octopuses and humans to die out when they're beyond reproducing age so that they can't compete with the young for resources. That would not at all that would not at all apply to the virus, because the virus is sent out across solar systems, at least, and across galaxies. Was it maybe? But the point is that the virus spreads to new hosts who would not compete with the old hosts for resources.
Yeah,
So the octopus explanation wouldn't apply.
that wouldn't apply, but it could be like the way it spreads is not through direct reproduction. And I wonder what they're doing with reproduction here. Are they even having kids? Like, I don't know. But maybe
I
it's
think
it's
they are.
they are. They're still having kids. They're mating in this world. What's that indication of that?
I can't remember the particular line, but I thought there was some line where they told us how many people had died in a time period. I vaguely remember them also talking about how many had been born.
Well, they were
Wait a
probably
second. The
pregnant
birth
before.
would be explained by the sex
Yeah,
before the
yeah,
virus.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they were
Yeah, so
pregnant, right?
maybe they're not having sex.
Yeah, and so maybe it's just like the most, it could have been the most efficient way to, for some reason, this thing evolved to be the way it did, and it's just because the way it spreads is not reproduction in the traditional sense; it's through passing information throughout the universe. Maybe it's indifferent, and it's indifferent to the long term survival, and the fact that they die is just a byproduct of its
Yeah, I
indifference.
think that would make some sense.
Yeah,
That
this is why I
it's
like the evolution.
programmed.
Evolution can take you a long way. Like evolution is like a simplifying heuristic that can, all the whys that seem not to make sense can make sense. The and so that, like, this is, if you want like a bang for your buck, and like as far as explanatory power, I think they have to explore this evolutionary angle. There's no indication of it here. There's nothing there. While your thing is like actually interesting philosophically, but would take us, I think, maybe a bit outside of hard sci-fi. It would take us more on the softer end of the spectrum, which is fine, but would add depth in a different way. Um, yeah, they could go either of these paths. I hope they take at least one of them.
Yeah, like why does the virus and they may be connected. Like, okay, why does the virus not, why is the virus set up so that why does it infect only the most intelligent form of life? Why is it set up so it is not particularly able to ensure the perpetuation of the species? Well, it's set up to ensure the perpetuation of the virus,
Yes.
which it can achieve by infecting only the dominant, most intelligent species on the planet. Let's suppose, infecting the smartest bears wouldn't get it very far toward constructing the
Hmm.
antenna or whatever it is that they're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
broadcast it
They
out
need
to the
they
rest of
need
the
an
galaxies on.
antenna. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a deeper question here of like what it's competing with. What it is it, what's it evolving against? Yeah, like is it evolving against, you know, I don't know. Like, are there a lot of these different kind of messages floating around the universe, and like they kind of conflict with each other once in a while, and one has to defeat another? I don't know.
Why does it need to be competing against something else of the same
Yeah, you're
kind?
right. Well, I mean, because it had to develop all these traits that make it spread, and it's like a complicated machine that's been created at the end of a process. Evolution, when you see a byproduct of evolution, it was competing at every step of the way. That's how it achieved every incremental step to get to where it was. It doesn't just pop up and say, okay, now I'm going to have sex, or now I'm going to fight, or now I'm going to take resources. There's usually like a bunch of steps that get you to that point.
Yeah, it's competing against the harsh environment.
The harsh environment. Um, So
It's
like you imagine, maybe there's a galaxy out there where there's like two planets, like they're very close together, and maybe it just kind of it's strong enough to get them to communicate between one planet and the other, and then it's like there's three planets away, and then whatever you get to a light year. Maybe maybe those are the incremental steps.
let me think about this a little more. Okay, so for under your kind of theory where the virus evolves, what would it take for the virus to evolve? I guess there would have to be multiple strains of it, and the less successful strains to be unable to
Yeah.
propagate themselves as effectively.
Yeah, it just has to propagate. You're right. It's competing against not existing, I guess. Right. I'm conflating, like, or I'm thinking of things in two ways. Uh the question of incrementalism and the question of competition. And I guess the incrementalism is the problem. You don't necessarily need competition of the same kind. That's not necessary.
I mean, I
Okay.
guess the question would be like, does it need to literally evolve in the way that animals evolve, or could it evolve, say, in the way that algorithms or systems evolve, for
Mhm.
instance,
Mhm.
like a more
Yeah.
metaphorical form of evolution?
Yeah.
And this is my question for you. Like, would that be enough for you?
No, I'd be happy with that. That's what I thought we were getting. I thought we were getting an AI show, but then he seemed to close it off and saying we're not getting that. He came to say seemed to say it's not about AI. Maybe it was he was thinking about algorithm and software. But yeah, that would be I would be happy with that. That's one of the things that I was like thinking of before. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's one kind of answer that maybe the show will be willing to give us. Uh, the virus just wants to spread itself,
Mhm.
and how far can they send it? Where can they send it? You know, maybe those kinds of things are inextricably linked to the question of what you're sending. Like, how much information in the virus are you trying to pack in? And maybe the more you try to pack in, the harder it is to send it, and the fewer and shorter distances you can send it across. And so
Mhm.
maybe that is a kind of in-universe explanation that it may be willing to explore.
Eh,
Maybe one way the virus evolves, like, hey, if we wanted to send it to Andromeda, we have the means, but we got to make it simpler. Maybe
yes.
that's the way the virus evolves.
Yeah, and that's why maybe they have a few simple rules. Maybe they have like two rules: don't lie, um, infect everyone, and build an antenna. Right, and then you don't need these complicated questions about. You could have weird stuff like don't kill. Like why would the not killing though be a yeah it might
I
be
would,
algorithm.
well, under this kind of theory, I'm kind of supposing that don't kill is kind of a vestigial
Hmm.
limb. Like that's a byproduct left
Yes.
over from some oversimplification to accomplish something else that helped it spread.
Yeah. And this would have. But why would don't kill ever be a good evolutionary? It could be something like maybe involved in a maybe if it's an AI kind of thing, it's an algorithmic thing. It's just the original programmer. That's the first thing you'd put. Don't kill, right? Don't lie. These are like the basic things you would put there, and maybe it keeps those. And so maybe it's a programmer if it evolved naturally without some kind of designer, without some kind of AI angle. In that case, I think we need a different explanation of why don't kill and don't lie would be there.
Here's one kind of example of how don't kill could be a vestigial
Mm.
limb in the virus's evolution. Maybe it helped it spread a lot if it had an overriding imperative saying something like all infected members of a species must cooperate with each other to build
Mm.
the big antenna and help it spread even more. And so
Mm.
maybe it evolved to select a very strong cooperate instruction, and don't kill just as a vestigial attachment that came along with the
Mm.
strong cooperate
But
instruction.
it already distinguishes between the most intelligent species and the other species. Um, and wouldn't it be better to also infect the? Okay, maybe we shouldn't go down that path, but it already makes this distinction. So why can't it just be within that species? Don't kill. Why does it have to be don't kill anything, including plants? Because that's very
Right.
abstract. Don't kill plants. That's very very abstract. You have to kind of that's something that is odd to think about being vestigial.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess on my theory, that there's just some overwhelming uh, cooperate instruction, and a very simple cooperate instruction that is by its simplicity able to be spread easier. And then you have some vestigial, harmful implications from the
Yeah.
strong instruction to cooperate. Uh, well, maybe it just doesn't, ideally, if they could tune it, they would tune it to say, hey, you don't need to cooperate. Plants aren't capable of cooperating back. Uh,
Yeah.
pigs aren't capable of cooperating back, but it just has not evolved in a way that is capable of making that
So
distinction.
yeah. So let
Like
me
that
ask you, like,
mutation hasn't
ugh,
arisen.
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe at some point we just give up on this and we just say we're happy, like we're happy to explore kind of the internal rules and how they work because there's a lot there. That's a show doing a lot. Maybe do you think maybe you set your expectations so high, too high? Like maybe it's maybe just getting into this stuff of why they feel and how like maybe that's pretty complex for a TV show and maybe we're asking for too much for wanting these deeper explanations.
Well, look, it's a pretty good show. Okay. It raises some
Okay, I'm
interesting
glad you
questions,
acknowledge
and
that. Yeah.
and we've talked, like, I'm not being a total curmudgeon. Like when it provides sufficient
Mm,
in-universe justification, I am
yeah,
happy to play its games and have
mm,
conversations like the one we just had, and the stuff about the distinction between thoughts and feelings and the massage, all of that. The show's doing well on all that stuff, but still, like the heart of it, there's a lot that viewers are wishing for that the
yeah,
show is not giving them because the show is saying, we want to do a character study. And why do they want to do a character study? Because they want it all swirls around this question. Is it better to be Carol or to be the Hive? Is it better to be Socrates dissatisfied or a pig satisfied? Whatever. The show is motivating, the show is justifying its refusal to give us more on the world building to focus on the character study because the show is focused on the question of whether it is truly good or bad to be part of the hive. That's the show's excuse for not giving the people what they want. That what it wants to give them is this rich meal on the conceptual question of whether it's a good life to be part of the hive. And I still hold true to my central critique that the question of whether it's desirable to be a member of the hive is not a deep enough question. And the greater sin, the show hasn't done enough to tell us what it's like to be part of the hive, to make it an interesting question.
well, I mean,
Like,
they've
it really alarms me to see Vince Gilligan saying, when they abandoned the baby goat that was bleeding so pitifully for her, did you notice that they were all smiling while they did so? It really alarmed me to see him say stuff like that. Because, like, yeah, I noticed they were smiling. I thought that was part of the whole premise. And I
yeah,
don't think it's that informative that they were all smiling.
uh,
This makes it sound like it's just like utilitarianism 101. Like, oh, if somebody's on heroin all the time, that sounds bad. But hey, did you notice they were smiling the whole time? Oh, and we
yeah.
managed to make a version of heroin that doesn't kill you if you're on it all the time. Would that be a good life? I don't really think so. I don't think it's that deep of a
Yeah.
question.
Although this does kill you eventually because you don't reproduce and you don't make food, and so there is this impending death that
Yes,
th're
we
all
have a new kind of heroin
yeah,
that
yeah,
you can be on 24/7.
yeah. You max.
And
I
there's
mean, you
no
max them.
tolerance problems.
Yeah, it's a new kind of heroin that does kill you, but it eventually, I mean, eventually kills you. You get fewer life years, right? If you had 30 years of expected life, now you have 5 or 10 years because you
Like,
can't.
is it, imagine this. Here's a thought experiment. Suppose there was no RNA virus thingy, and suppose that instead scientists have developed a new strain of heroin where you can be on it 24/7 and you don't develop any tolerance. You always get that high. And then the show is like, damn, everybody is trying this new form of heroin. It's not like there's no infection. It's just like people are so happy, and the moment they
Mm,
get it, they're addicted, and now everybody is on heroin, new heroin 24/7. And damn, people are so happy on it.
mm,
They don't even have time to go out farming, and so we
yeah,
project that they won't be able to sustain themselves with
yeah,
food in 10 years. That would be a very similar show,
yeah.
and it would raise, and you can even talk to them, and the people on
Mm,
heroin are like, yeah, this is some good shit, man. You got to
yeah.
try this. uh, it would be a very similar show, and I wouldn't find it that deep a question whether I should be on the new heroin 24/7.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about like kind of the internal rules of this and what if this even makes sense on its own terms. So the idea that they can take we talked about the idea they can take Carol's eggs, but they can't inject her. Like they have to listen to Carol. They have to listen to the ones who are still not joined. But they have to fulfill their mission. And I was just thinking, I was talking to Rob Henderson, like, um, could she stop them from infecting her by like giving them all jobs to do? Like, say you all have to build like a giant pyramid, and you have to use the labor of every human on this earth, and then they could never get around to doing her to make to making her one of them. Like there are like kind of paradoxes here that you can explore, right?
Well, I think that one would be answered. Like, they're not dumb, right? They would say, Carol,
Yeah,
I'm working on this thing. I'm working on this big antenna, and
yeah,
your pyramid is stopping me from that.
yeah,
And the first thing's got to be first.
yeah.
I think that's just how it would
They
go.
but they
They'll
accept
be like,
some
we can make you
inefficiency.
a small pyramid. Would
Yeah.
you be okay with a little
Yeah.
pyramid?
Well, Kumba gets like he gets like all these people to act in his little, movie scenes, which is funny, and he gets so they're sacrificing a lot of efficiency for this one man. I don't know. They have maybe they give him
Only
100
a
people,
little.
a little
I
bit.
mean,
So
it's all a
there's a
rounding error.
so there's a maximum. So there's a maximum amount of inefficiency they will tolerate to serve Kumbe and Carol. Right? They'll give them the labor of 100 people or 1,000 people, but not more than that.
Yeah,
Is that kind of
and
it?
really, like, if you get right down to it, like, what is rate limiting them on the construction of their big antenna? Like, it's probably not like they probably have more than enough bodies. Like, it's not like they're set back at all. I would think.
Maybe it requires
Like,
some kind of learning to build. Like maybe there's some new science they have to find, which they have to figure out. It's not just like maybe
okay,
the
and how does
antenna.
that work? Do they need a team of crack
Yeah, why
hive
not?
mind
I mean, they
scientists
they
on it,
they
or can
take.
they one?
Wait, what? Yeah, they have a crack. They have a team of like they have all the scientific knowledge that humans had at the moment of the joining, and then they have some conceptual idea of what the antenna is and how it works, and then they have to build it. I don't think that's difficult to explain why they can't do it right away. It just would take time, right?
Right. I'm just saying that I'm not sure that it's costing them anything at all to devote, a few dozen people
Yeah,
to
you're right.
play acting Casino Royale
Yeah, well,
with
what is the
Kumba.
addition of a few per people to this productive production process? Yeah. Uh okay. But there has to be some there is a line, and it's a
Uh,
cost benefit. It's
But
not
think
a
of it this way. Imagine that they're not losing anything at all toward their big antenna goals by, you know, play acting for these 12 others. And so they're not really losing anything at all. And on the other hand, there's a payoff, the potential to get one more convert to the hive. And so the math makes it worth it from the standpoint
no,
of
it doesn't, because
maximizing hive
the
numbers.
well, no, because these they sometimes kill. Well, first of all, like they're losing all the labor and all the abilities of those people. So like if they spend a year on Kube, like they give them 1,000 people for a year, they would need Kube to live 1,000 years to give them back what they've lost. And then
Is that how it works? Are they trying to what? What can you break that down for me? What are
well,
you saying again?
you're saying they it can make sense from the maximizing high mind perspective to like try to wait on Carol and wait on Kube, which it doesn't seem like it's worth. If I need a thousand man hours to convert someone who'll give me 100 man hours, that's not that's not efficient. So they have if Kube has 1,000 people with him for a year, and they lose a thousand man years of labor, Kube, assuming he could do everything else other people could do, would need 1,000 years to pay them back.
Well, the assumption there is that what they're trying to optimize and maximize is like 5 years experienced or something like
Year
that. I think that what
labor.
they're trying to maximize is just individuals or proportion of existing individuals that are members of the hive. They want to make that as close as possible
Okay,
to
okay, that's
100%.
interesting. Okay, that's interesting, but it's not. But it's not. It's a kind of it's a malfunctioning of the evolutionary, because it's not the best interest of spreading this thing. It's just a rule, a hard and fast rule. Get 100%, and but it doesn't make sense because look, Koopa, like Carol kills them. Being around Carol kills a lot of them every so often. So this can't be cost benefit justified if you were rationally planning it out to maximize the hive. But if you're just maximizing percentage, like, would you rather have a species where like a million people and 100% of them are like a billion with like you have 90% of them? Obviously, you would want the billion with 90% if you want to build a giant antenna, right? If you're just planning it, you would take just the pure numbers. And you would say, but if you have this kind of defective thing which says maximize the percentage, you would like be happy to lose a bunch of people to bring Kuba and Carol on board.
Say that last sentence again to me.
So it depends on what they're going for. If this was done in a way that a rational planner would do it, you would not care about Kuma or Carol. You would not care
Yeah.
about them because there are only 13 of them. It's so much effort. They kill you off. They've killed people through their unpredictable behavior. But if there's a rule like just maximize percentage, like you would be fine with killing millions to get Carol on board because you're maximizing percentage. That's not the rational thing to maximize for if you were planning this from the perspective of like you were a central planner and you were planning what the hive was going to be able to do to maximize the ability to build the antenna. But if you did just have a
This is a
rule,
fair question. So
yeah.
let me suppose a couple things. Like, first of all, I am supposing that in the show, they have everything they need to build the big antenna. And what I mean by that is that they aren't sacrificing a single bit of antenna building
Mhm.
by cooking Carol a nice dinner
Okay, yeah,
or
that makes
doing the
sense.
casino scene. And I
Uh-huh.
don't think they would be willing to sacrifice a single bit of antenna building effort.
Mhm.
And I think that you're right to point out in their efforts to convert Carol, they've already lost, 10, 20 million existing members of the hive. And I think that shows us within the show what the hive is optimized for. And what they are optimized for, there is the non-hive, and there are known non-hive entities, and there are unknown non-hive entities out there. And the hive is optimized, the virus is optimized not to maximize raw numbers of hive
Mhm.
members there are,
Yeah.
because they would be making a terrible trade by
Yes, exactly
losing
what I'm
10
saying.
million
Yes.
to convince Harold. And so that's
Mhm.
not what they're optimized for. What
Yes.
they are optimized for is the percentage to get as close to 100% as they can on existing entities who are members of the hive. And if they lose if they lose a billion existing Hive members to get from 99 to 99.1, then they'll do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
that is
And
how
that's
they're
but
programmed.
that's malfunctioning. That's an evolutionary malfunction. That doesn't make sense.
Is it?
Well, no, no.
I mean,
I'm not saying it can't evolve. It's like the way, you would evolve where you would just, do heroin all day because you're seeking pleasure, but it's like not evolutionarily adaptive. I think it's like that. They have some kind of rule that says maximize percentage, but it's harming their efforts to build the antenna, potentially endangering them.
I'm not sure it is harming their.
You're not
Oh,
sure?
okay,
I mean,
actually, if we get right down to it, maybe it is harming them
like
because
Carol
it seems like
Manus,
they have people working on the antenna, and when Carol gets angry or Manusos does his
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
it does literally set them back a bit in their antenna building. They collapse for a
Yeah.
while.
I mean, they give her atom bombs. Like, do they give her 10 atom bombs? Like, what do they give? Like, she could kill them. A lot of them.
The word of God has spoken here,
Yeah.
which is
And,
one reason why we have to read these interviews. Like
and say,
Vince
well,
Gilligan, in some interviews, he's been saying like, "Oh yeah, they're willing to give her the A bomb because it's not actually going to set them back." But I think he's directly said they would not be willing to, give her the keys to all the nuclear bombs, and
uh,
they would not let her blow up the entire world. Basically,
uh,
he said.
uh, okay, they would not let her play with it. Okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, at least he's thought about it instead of just leaving it out there as a paradox. Yeah. So she could, yeah, I don't know. Like, I still think they're hard. Yeah, you're right. So we agree. So we're in agreement that if this wasn't evolution and they were just kind of, if you were just had a rational person who said maximize the ability to have, you wouldn't care about Carol. You would kill her. You would not. You would kill her, and you would kill Medusos. You would kill these people just so they don't have a chance of like messing with your.
Or even just let them die.
Let
Like
them
you don't even
die.
have to kill them. You
Or
just have to
go
not
away from
feed them
them.
and not be around them.
Yes, yes, leave them. Exactly. Yeah, leave them. Yeah, yeah. This would be the rational thing. There's something irrational here from this perspective of the well-being of the hive that is programmed into them for some reason to, and also
Yeah,
be
it's just
honest
a
to them and like serve them. Like that is
yeah,
creating problems for yourself.
it's just I think a brute fact that what the hive is hardwired to do is maximize the percentage of existing
Yeah.
entities that are members of the hive.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's just a brute fact. Okay, well, one thing we've learned, I think, from the Vince Gilligan interviews is that he doesn't he doesn't know what he's doing beforehand. He seems to make it up as he goes along, even within the same season. So maybe if we get this interview to him, if somehow this takes off, maybe he will find it, and maybe he will. You
Yes,
want to make a
the good news is that there's like 3 years before we get the second season of Pluribus, so there is
yeah.
time to spread the word about how
Uh,
people would like to see a deeper,
I mean,
better
for all we,
show.
I'm guessing they're going to prioritize. For all we know, they're filming it right now. I mean, it might be a
No,
while.
no,
No, what do they say?
man,
They're not even.
you gotta look these things up. He's basically on record saying they haven't started filming it yet, and it's gonna take a long time. It's
Uh,
gonna take, the interviewers are like, "Hey, do you think maybe you'll start filming by next May?" And he starts scoffing, like, "Oh yeah, next May, sure." It's like, no,
mm.
he's on the record saying it's gonna take forever to
Oh
get season
goodness
two,
gracious.
2 or 3 years.
Why would they? What's holding them back? Because they are. It is a hit show. It was one of the. You think you'd prioritize the hit show above whatever else. Do they have more important things going on? Why wouldn't they just go as fast as possible?
Yeah, man, but this is not just unique to Pluribus. This is like an epidemic in TV shows right now. It was the same for Severance. Severance was a great show. It was like 3 years between season one and season two. Some disease has just afflicted Hollywood
Hmm.
where they used to churn out not even just like shitty shows like 24 or whatever. It was a decent show, but like even stuff like Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, prestige TV.
Hmm.
They used to be able to produce it like clockwork, one season a year. But we have lost the technology.
Hmm.
It's rather part of the explanation is that we gained new and more troublesome technology. I was looking into this question a while back, like why does it take 2 or 3 years between seasons of shows these days? And one of the answers is like high definition TV. There are a bunch of answers, but one of the answers is because we have much higher definition now. Uh, it used to be that before that, you could get away with having like imperfect props in the background
Hmm.
and people
Hmm.
just wouldn't see it. But
Hmm.
now, because people can see the definition on absolutely everything in the shot, there's a new imperative for everything to be flawless. And so
Wow.
that's just one example of one of the insidious forces saying we've got to wait 2 or 3 years between seasons of prestige TV.
Seems like AI might be able to fix this. Um, the funny thing? Do you see how much Gilligan hates AI? What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. Like, what is it that he? I
He
haven't
says
looked
like
that deep into his hatred. What is it?
I've just read. I mean, I've read the same interviews that you probably have.
But
He's just
why
like
does
it's
he hate
not.
it? Like, what's his big problem with it?
Well, he says
Like,
it's
it's
not intelligence, and I hate this stuff. I don't know. I don't know if he gives a good explanation, but like I don't know. How do you connect it to his worldview in any way? Like, do you have any kind of idea of like what he's doing and why he would feel this way?
hmm.
He is. I mean, he is on
Well, I
record as
mean,
saying
like it's
he's.
connected to the show in that it relates to the question of whether the show is some kind of commentary in part on AI.
No, no, yeah, but it's not. But he says it's not. But so there's something else that makes him hate AI.
But it is the product of a writer's room, and so all it takes is for some writer writing the actual lines of dialogue. They all agree on the plotting of the scene or whatever. All it takes is for one writer who uses ChatGPT a lot to say, "Hey, let me write this dialogue in a kind of ChatGPT style," and then boom, suddenly you have
But
AI commentary
I
smothered
don't
in.
think I don't think it's a question of him being afraid AI is going to creep into the show. There seems to be something deeper. I don't know. There's something deep here about him that
I don't know.
he,
I haven't
yeah.
looked that much into why he
Okay.
doesn't like
Well, let's see.
AI.
Vince
I remember
Gill,
some stuff about him saying like it's not real, it's soulless, that kind of thing.
Vince Gilligan, art AI. Let's see what he thinks about AI. Yeah. He says he's a plagiarism machine. He says, I quote, I hate AI. AI is the world's most expensive and energy intensive plagiarism machine. Let's see here if I can find what he exactly says. Um, so here's a deadline interview. Uh, he says, about his distaste for AI and its detriment to human creativity, which is viewed as the most important way people can assert their legacy agency. He says, quote, I don't care about AI, but I'll try to be magnanimous and say anytime a new technology is created, I have to believe that the central impetus of it is to make the world a better place. It's just that as technology, blah, 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 blah. It depends on that could create technology for, okay, whatever. This just seems like, yeah, generic stuff. Uh, Anyways, yeah, this is a stupid article. It's like talking about workers and all this other things. Okay. Anyways, I don't know. Okay. Sounds like anyway. It's not that deep. He just says he hates AI. He calls it a plagiarism machine, and I wanted to know if you had any thoughts. I don't know. It seems to be a kind of small c conservatism. He said he's conservative or more conservative than most people in Hollywood. Is the famous quote that he once gave, which I think is like the only thing he's ever said, as far as I know about his politics. More conservative than most people in Hollywood. And so
Well, look,
yeah.
as to why he hates AI, I mean, the guy is an artist, right? He's an artiste. And
Mhm.
and so it probably, as a guy who has made some genuinely great art, it probably offends his sensibilities to see AI slop and to see people liking
Mm.
it and to
Mm.
see
I
people
don't.
becoming hooked on it. And he probably does worry and has some legitimate reason to worry that it'll rot our brains and
Mm.
rot the production of great art.
Mm. Okay. I was looking for something that was specific to him rather than generic as a guy who makes art. But either way, okay. Um, yeah.
I
Any.
only read the guy's stuff because I've determined that I have to understand his show.
You're not deeply interested in Vince Gilligan as a human being.
Gilliganology, like, Bravo,
No.
Vince, all that stuff. Like,
No. Okay. Okay. Anything else, Chris? Did you want to talk about the show?
no, I think that we covered a good amount of ground. I mean, there's plenty of other stuff that we could talk about, but I think that we got to like the
Yeah.
deepest stuff, the most important stuff.
Yeah. We could talk about a lot more, but I think yeah, this is
Like
plenty.
anything else, it would dilute it, I think.
Okay. Okay. Good. This is a good. Are you watching any other shows? I talked about there's nothing else that I'm watching.
I'm watching Fallout, and I'm
Uh,
actually really enjoying Fallout, and
is
that's
that
not attempting to be a deep show.
it's not attempting to be a deep show? Okay, that's the one where they were all underground and they were. It was in the future. It was the Soviet Union and the U.S. had a.
Yeah, yeah, it's based on the video game series,
Okay, yeah,
and it's
I've seen like two episodes.
post-apocalyptic.
I've seen like two episodes. You think it's good? You know what? I'm kind of woke now where I can appreciate lesbians like Carol, but they had like a trans character who it just I was just like, this is stupid. Is it still what
No,
is it still
give it 5 years and you'll have your next awakening.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Wait,
Is
I thought you were totally cool with
no,
trans characters from what
it's
I've
not.
seen on Twitter.
I love them when they are when they are
Wait, the trans
the,
character wasn't hot enough. That's the problem, isn't it?
yes, part of it, but it's like it was supposed the trans character was supposed to be like a tough guy, and it's like a small male or female. I don't know. It was stupid. It wasn't like they were just
Okay,
dressing
so
up and
if
being
it were
trans.
the problem was not that there being a
Trans.
trans character. The problem for you was the trans character was not a hot trans woman.
No,
That's
yes. Well, yes. It was it a hot trans woman or something that there's a way where it interferes with the story, which is like you have like a woman like you could have aggressive woman in a show, but like a woman who like goes regularly beats up men would interfere with the show. So I think this person, if I remember when I watch it, this trans person who was male to female or female to male, it was hard to tell, was supposed to be like some kind of warrior or something, right? It was like supposed to be some kind of fighter.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
female
and
to
that too.
male,
Yeah, and
but
that
not a terribly effective fighter. I
okay.
think
So she
one of the plot points is like some cowardice.
Oh, okay. So she's not very good. Okay, well maybe that redeems it. Maybe,
Okay, yeah. So
maybe
so Richard, you can watch the show because there's a
but
trans character, and I admit
they
not
fail.
a hot trans character, but cowardly. So you can watch
Cowardly.
the show.
How big is the trans character? Do we have to be thinking about this all the
Very
time?
minor part, very minor.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Man,
I'll. All right.
there's all kinds of good stuff. This is not the first time you've missed out on like a good show. Like remember House of the Dragon? Like like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you and I were arguing on Twitter and you refused to watch it for like years because you were like, I don't
yeah,
like Game of Thrones, but I don't like it showing black Valyrians in Game of
yeah.
Thrones. and then you made your peace with it once you were awakened
I
to
had
racial
to.
justice.
No, you're right. Maybe Fallout is the one I have to return to. Yeah, House of Dragons is good. It's not. I will still maintain that it's not as good as Game of Thrones, and some of the woke storylines do interfere with it.
Oh
I
yeah,
will say that.
definitely, definitely. And
Okay.
let me tell you on that one, like there's one very concrete way that wokeness is kind of screwing it, which is that they've decided to insert all these new plots and devote all this screen time to the interactions of strong female leaders who never interacted in the actual book that it's based on. And so
Mm.
the interesting story it's based on has been hijacked by conversations between strong female leaders about their
Isn't the
relationship.
point of the House of Dragons that it's very thinly written as far as what it's based on, so they have to fill in stuff
What it's
anyway.
based on is thinly written in the sense that it's written as a historical perspective on events, a historical document about Game
Mm.
of Thrones, and so it just covers plot developments. And the book itself, World of Ice and Fire, doesn't say much about the specific dialogue, and events are contested. And so House of the Dragon has a lot of freedom. It has legitimate freedom to fill in some of
Yeah.
those blanks.
So
It's just
what's your
filling
problem
them
with?
in
But what's
some
your
bad
problem?
ways sometimes.
Okay, you just think it's filled with too many strong female characters talking to one another. That's not the way you want it filled in. You'd prefer it to be filled in another way.
Yeah, it's this thing where, you know, the writers of the show, they just kind of fell in love with their actors and were like, "Oh, we just wanted more. We love how Emma and Olivia, we love their energy when they bounce off each other. So we just wanted to write more scenes where they can vibe together." And it's like you guys have
Game
fallen
of
in love with your art too
Yeah,
much.
Game of Thrones was
Like
really
remember
special.
us. Spare a thought to the poor viewer and what we want to see from time to time.
Game of Thrones, yeah, it was really special. It was a moment of time where you had this big budget thing. It was like the last or one of the last big shows everyone was watching, and it was like that big. And then, like before wokeness, like in the last season, you see it started to creep in. Lady Marmont, I can't get over how stupid that was. Like this 8-year-old girl, like I feel my mother was no beauty. She was no beauty. She died fighting for your father. Like, she's 8 years old and she's pushing around all these men. It got really, really stupid at the end. But anyways, we got like 4 or 5 good seasons uh, out of it. Anyways, anything else besides Fallout that I might give a chance to?
Oh, so this new thing that's coming out, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, new Game of Thrones show that's coming out soon.
Oh,
I'll be watching that for
it's
sure.
what is
Maybe
it?
we should watch that together.
What is it like? What's the premise? Where is it in this universe?
So this is set maybe about 100 years before Game of Thrones, and it's set after all the dragons have already died out. And
House of
it's
Dragons
meant to
is
be a
what, like
kind of
three
look
hundred?
more at the common man's life because in the Game of
Oh,
Thrones universe, what we're seeing is always from the perspective of the nobles, like the
mm-hmm.
Lannisters, the Starks. That's what the Game of Thrones is. It's inherently from the perspective of the nobles. And so the interesting premise of the novellas that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is based on is that it's like, hey, we've got this whole, we can look at the same world just from the perspective of the common man instead and tell entirely new kinds of stories. And so it follows a hedge knight, a guy who is like, he doesn't start out as a real knight, basically. And it just follows his escapades and adventures. And it's meant to be more lighthearted and kind of develop the world more just by showing you it through a different set of eyes.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So House of Dragons is like 300 years before Game of Thrones. Is that it?
It's like 150, something like
Yeah,
that.
and so this is like 50 years later, and then it's yeah. This is a recurring debate in history departments, like whether to focus on elites or to focus on like the regular people, and uh, it's kind of wrapped up in like the kind of political debates about academia. But yeah, that's interesting angle for Game of Thrones to take. When is this coming out? It's on HBO, I assume.
Yeah, yeah, it should be coming out within a month or two, I bet.
Really, what's it called?
A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
A KNIGT of the Seven Kingdoms. Okay, okay, okay. They didn't make him a Black Valyrian, at least. Uh let's see. Let's see what I can see. Oh, they have a thing of like the actors. Oh, they have a poster of the actors. Interesting, and they look all white. They have a
Oh,
cast. They
great.
have
Let's watch the
oh,
show.
oh, except one. There look one looks half black. No, they have. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14, 21, 28. It's like 40. It's like 35 people, and there's
I'll
one.
look it up, see if there's any see if there's
Let me
any
see.
trans characters.
Let me show. Let me show you this. I'm going to show you this poster. This is just what I found on Reddit. I'm going to send it to you in the chat here, and you'll see there's like two. I see two who look like they might be half black. They look like they might be like a. Uh, let's see here. Share. How do you do the chat here?
Man, these
I'm gonna
predilections
I'm gonna
over
DM
here,
you
they
on.
take you off from worthy art sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you can't tell me why Game of Thrones Westeros has no black people. You have to tell me why Westeros has no black people in Game of Thrones, but it has them in House of the Dragon. Like, why are they? Like, why? What happened?
What happened was they did exist in Game of Thrones, and through right privilege, the story writers and the camera didn't show them.
Yes. See, this is what you
Done.
need. Anyways, I showed you this. I sent you this this link on Reddit. So, anyways, it shows Reddit. This is let me tell you, this race casting is a proxy. It's a proxy for storytelling because if you know that if they feel like the characters have to be half black, they're going to make them all gay, and they're going to they're just going to insert all this
How did
wokeness
where did you send me this thing? I don't see it
on
anywhere.
Twitter. I sent it to your DMs on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
You see this? It's like they all look. They're all the characters look like white people, except maybe one or two who are part who look mixed. You're looking at what you seen it yet?
No, I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
Still going.
This is very fast. This is after hours of our conversation. I will watch this now. Well, I'll watch it. I would have watched it anyway. Even if they were all black, I
Okay,
would
the
have watched it.
cast so far. Let me see. Okay, I've got it pulled up. Let's see.
Yeah, look like they look
I don't know. We got a guy
West.
who's kind of Hispanic looking.
No, that's fine. In Game of Thrones, we had that sword fighter in the early episodes.
Okay, I see Tanzan, Crawford, Tanzelli. That's probably what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay,
was talking about.
what's the big deal?
No, they're all. I mean, they're all. It looks like it's going to be the demographics of Westeros and Game of Thrones rather than House of Dragons, where they were a multiracial community who became homogeneously white over the course of a couple hundred years. Anyways,
I'm telling you, the camera the camera literally, the story in Game of Thrones, it literally doesn't contain that many characters from the Black Valyrian family, like the Valarians. The Valarians
no,
just don't show
no,
up.
when you look at the crowds of the common people, you would see it, and you would see black people in the crowds and in like these and they weren't there in Game of Thrones. That's what when they go to that den, when they go to that sex den where they're all having that orgy, there are non-white people, and there are just not in Game of Thrones. That's just a fact. Now maybe they all genocided them. Maybe they became racially conscious in the few hundred years. That would be an explanation. And they chased them out, or they expelled the Jews, but
Oh
they
man, I'm
don't.
telling you, it's the white supremacy of the cameraman.
Well, that's
There's
why not the white.
all the
Why not the
black people
whites?
over there in the story. The camera
Why not
just
the
never
white
showed
supremacy
it.
of the universe? Why does it have to be the cameraman? No, it could be white supremacy of this one or the other. Anyways, that's the explanation.
You should
Okay, we
allow
will
yourself
definitely.
to watch the shows without it being dictated by the demographics, the changing
It's
demographics
part
of
of
the
it.
extras.
It is the extras are the population. They are part of the story. Anyways, okay.
Consider these things acceptable losses. The show can still be good in many
Yeah,
ways.
yeah, it could still be good. That's why I watched House of the Dragon. It can still be good, but it is an annoyance. Okay.
I
Anyways,
see you are still
I'm still not over
mid-step
my.
on the road to enlightenment.
That's true.
We got you. You're willing to watch hot trans people and willing to
Uh,
watch cowardly trans people now. So
uh-huh.
we're going somewhere.
Yeah. All right, Chris. It's been fun, man, and yeah, we'll watch the new Game of Thrones. That'll be fun.
All right, sounds good. Later.